Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to Authentic Black Goddess TV. I'm your host, QueenAShakur, and this is your daily vitamin. So, as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. And also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at QueenAShakur. You can also follow the QueenAShakur fan page, and you can follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. So listen to this. The victim of a shooting that erupted outside of Target has been identified. Elias Phillips, age 24, was shot in front of the Oakley, Cincinnati store days as the doors opened Thursday afternoon. So just yesterday. Now, the police said the shooter shot only Phillips and believed that he was the gunman's intended victim. Right? Believes that was the intended target. Now, Elias's father, Tracy, said that his son was in town visiting his mom and sister at the time. Tracy told WLWT, says, I don't know how they're going to try to portray it, but my son was an innocent person. He was in the Target store shopping, and this man took it upon himself to kill my son in the Target parking lots. This is also crazy. I mean, what is going on with people these days? So the cops are still hunting for the suspect, who has not yet been identified. Footage from the scene showed a sea of police officers storming the department store with their guns drawn. Now, employees and shoppers sheltered inside the store in the wake of the shooting as the SWAT team officers entered the store to make sure that it was safe. Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Pourville thanked CPD officials for their swift response, saying, I am extremely thankful to our Cincinnati police for their quick response, their immediate attention to ensuring that the safety of all was important, and also their dedication to searching for the person who is responsible. He also added that while today's shooting was not ultimately an active shooter situation, that does not diminish the unacceptable fact that there is far too much gun violence in our country and across the country. We cannot become numb to the senseless acts of violence and loss of life. Officials with Cincinnati Police and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives also responded to the incident. Here's the thing. They're acting like, people are becoming senseless to the loss of life, so we can't become numb to it. Well, I find that interesting because this is true. We shouldn't become numb to it. But it seems as though they've been numb for years to the plight of Black people in this country. I'm sorry. It's absolutely true. Okay? These things happen to us on a regular basis, and in fact, all the time, and no one really wants to say anything about it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Everyone, please get those likes up. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you in advance.
I was just checking out and just heard gunshots.
This massive police response gives you a sense of the chaos inside. Witnesses describe screaming, running, and efforts to quickly spread the word.
Okay, so that's quickly cut off. Hold on. Let me see if I can bring up another video. Everyone, please like and share. Okay. Okay, here we go. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share.
Artist down here at the Target store outside of Oakley with Ashley Kirkland. And about 1 o'clock this afternoon, there was a big situation, a lot of chaos, people rushing to the scene, police cruisers from all over greater Cincinnati coming down here. Turns out we learned from police it was a suspect looking for a person, finding that person, shooting and killing that person right out here in front of the Target store. And sadly, it's something we see all too often on our news every night on Channel 5, a situation like that where somebody's targeting somebody and shooting and killing. them. But Ashley, it's those seconds of not knowing. It is those seconds where people in the neighboring stores, people in the Target heard the gunfire and they're thinking, oh no, here we go again. It's what we watch on national TV.
Yeah, Mike, and honestly for us, it was a couple of hours of really not knowing what truly was the scene and what were the details here until police did brief us about that, and we'll hear about those later. But when I first arrived to the scene, it was chaotic. My photojournalist and myself, John Massey, we were at the Board of Elections in Norwood. We jetted over when we got the call about what was going on, and we got here about 5 minutes later. Police were here running into that Target with high-powered armor there and body armor, a heavy presence here on the scene, and a lot of people just not knowing what was really going on.
Throughout the next couple of hours, we're going to hear all kinds of stories of people who were in the store, running to the back, alerting other people, running outside. But right now we want to get kind of the lay of the land from the interim police chief, Fiji, who was here a short time ago to alert the media as to what happened earlier this afternoon here at the Target.
Afternoon, our 911 center started receiving 911 calls from witnesses that there was an individual firing a gun in the area of the Target store up here in the Oakley neighborhood. The calls came in as such a manner that led us to believe it was an active shooter situation that was dispatched as an active shooter situation. We were immediately able to get an enormous amount of resources, Cincinnati and fire resources here to handle it. Once we arrived on scene, we determined it was not an active shooter investigation or incident. It was a shooter who had an intended target, and he fired his gun and hit that individual in the parking lot just outside the front doors of the Target store. The shooting did not occur inside the Target, and many of those employees and patrons inside the store were not harmed. Nobody inside the store was harmed. He only fired and shot at his intended target.
You do have people that are innocent shoppers out here when this happened. Talk about that aspect, and is this fatal? Is anyone dead or hurt? What are you hearing?
So the intended target that was shot has since passed. Unfortunately, he has passed. However, like I said, no other victims to this offense were here today. So no witnesses, no employees, no patrons were harmed. I will say that they were extremely intelligent and that they called for police services immediately. Those services arrived. And in the meantime, those employees, shoppers, patrons did the right thing. They sheltered in place inside the Target store.
What is going on with people these days? Like, why are people just doing the absolute most? All so crazy. So anyway, they say the person who was shot and killed apparently was targeted. Now, mind you, the mother seems to want to say that her son's innocent and all that. Okay. So anyway, now they go on to say that interim Cincinnati Police Chief Teresa Thetke said initial calls led them to believe it was an active shooting situation, but they later confirmed it was a person who was simply targeted. Now, I have some footage of where they had witnesses talking about what they saw while they were there, and I'm going to share my screen to show that as well. So everyone, please get the likes up. Please like and share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Okay. The victim of the shooting was taken to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, where he died. Police later identified him as Elias Phillips, age 24. Let me get this cued.
All right, that's fine. We'll go.
Is this one yours? I don't know. Okay, we are standing here with the mayor and the interim chief mayor. What can you tell us?
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. At 1 o'clock today, approximately, a shooting occurred just outside of the Target here in Oakley. I'm here with Chief Fiji I'll let the chief talk about the specifics. I'm here to clear up the aspect of the active shooter designation. This was not an active shooter. It's important for the community to know that right off the top. When our 911 operators got several calls about a shooting that happened here at Target, the protocol is to, and those witnesses believe that it was an active shooter. The protocol from those 911 operators is to give law enforcement the information that they have. It's understandable.
It would happen inside the city limits. The Cincinnati Police and Cincinnati Fire would respond just as they did today.
How will those people play a part in the investigation moving forward?
Yeah, so because there were so many witnesses, you know, everybody here knows we would typically take witnesses down to our CIS for the homicide investigators to interview them there. But because there were so many here today, we left them here at the scene. Metro was gracious enough to give us a bus to put them on, and we brought the investigators here. So they are interviewing the witnesses and letting them, releasing them from the scene as quickly as they can after they talk to them.
Where exactly did the shooting take place?
In front of Target.
Right in front.
Target still, and I ran into a woman who was here getting her granddaughter. This is Miss Hunter and Kavina. Now, Kavina, you actually work at the Meijer next door. Explain how you got out and what that situation was like.
So at first it started while they were like evacuating the customers, and then I got a call saying like, oh, there's an active shooter, which I didn't know at first. But when I found out, I just so happened to know that she was around the area, so she came to got me. Even though I'm at Meijer, it's still like very close to me. So.
And you said you ran out of a side door.
Yeah, I ran out of like the second door down from the main door of the entrance to Meijer.
And so, Grandma, I know you had to be a nervous wreck. What were your feelings when you heard this?
When I first found out about it, my son had mentioned a shooting at Marburg and Royer. So I'm going, oh my gosh. So when he mentioned Target, right away, I thought of Kavina and Meijer. So I came up here and, it was just, this was terrible. So I got to Meijers.
Yeah.
I don't know how I drove straight through the parking lot. I just went on. No one told me to stop. And I got to Meijers, and the customers was coming out. And I said, well, what's going on? And the gentleman said, we are evacuating Meijers because of a shooting up at Target. I said, I have a granddaughter in there. He said her name, Kavina. By that time, Kavina walked out the door, and I almost dropped. I was so glad to see her. Yeah, because when I got here, people thought that the shooter had ran toward Meijers, but I didn't know. No one stopped me or said anything.
And earlier I asked you if you ever would imagine that something like this could happen. You said no, but Kavina, you said immediately yes. You've had fears of this.
Well, I've already knew what to do since like in school we had like a bunch of drills on what to do if something like this were to happen. And working in like a store like this always crossed my mind. So.
Is it a fear or just kind of something that you've kept in your mind conscious?
Something I just kept in my mind, like in case it ever happened.
And so you kind of kicked into the training that you have learned?
Yeah, and I just followed what I was taught back then, like years ago in school.
And how old are you, Kavina?
I'm 19.
How are you feeling now? Are you still a little shaken up?
It's scary, but right now, I feel much calmer, like not being like inside. I'd rather be like with her than to still be at the store.
And I'm sure your nerves are calm.
Yeah, they're much better. I'm getting ready to take her home and get away from this. Yeah, it's too much. It's just too much.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. And I'm so glad that you're okay and get home safely. Yes.
Okay, now that is clearly crazy. But thank God more people weren't injured or killed. So, like I said, we have a lot of people doing all the craziest things these days. And I don't know if it has anything to do with that juice or the venom. I don't know, but it sure is crazy. I mean, these shootings seem to be getting amped up more and more as the days pass. So, and you know, the young woman said she did know something like that could happen. And that's right. We should all know. I mean, we live in the divided snakes where it is crime riddled. And I know some of you don't want to think that or say it, but it's absolutely true. There's a lot of crime that goes on in the Divided Snakes, and it seems to be getting even worse during the pandemic, as far as I'm concerned. So, honey, here in this country, you, in my opinion, have to expect the unexpected, okay? I mean, I'm always looking over my shoulders, honey. When I go in Walmart, when I'm in Kroger, wherever I'm at, I'm always observing my surroundings. You have sex traffickers, all kinds of things going on, honey. They're trying to snatch Black people's organs and everything. You know that melanin is worth like $500 per gram. So clearly they're looking for it. So I don't, get surprised by anything that happens, and especially when it pertains to shootings. And I'm actually expecting another mass shooting to occur pretty soon. I absolutely am. So Congress addresses bomb threats at historically Black colleges. Now, y'all thought that they were just making these threats during Black History Month. No, beloveds, they're still doing it as we speak, to the point so much so that Congress has actually addressed it. The FBI called the threats racially or ethnically motivated violent extremism. Now, I want y'all to pay attention. They call it racially and ethnically motivated violent extremism, but yet they coined a phrase known as Black identity extremists, when there's no such thing, right, to further demonize and vilify Black people. And they had, some of these politicians voting against the anti-lynching bill. They also have failed to give us an anti-Black racism bill, like they gave the Asians, an anti-Black hate crime bill. So they don't want to do anything about it, but they'll yet admit that there's racially and ethnically charged threats that are motivated by violence extremism. So I don't know how they can make that make sense. So they say Congress is addressing campus security at historically Black colleges and universities in the wake of dozens of high-profile bomb threats. The House Committee on Oversight and Reform and the Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties will hold a hearing today. They held a hearing on Thursday, featuring HBCU students alongside FBI and the Department of Education officials. Now, the hearing aims to explore how the government can help to improve institution security and prevent domestic terrorism. They say in one threatening call targeting Spelman College, an HBCU school for women in Atlanta, a caller claimed that they had singled out the school for one particular reason. They said there are too many Black students in it. You see how the devil just hate on Black folk? They cannot mind their own business, but they always have to be so obsessed with us and just clearly hate. I mean, like, too many Black students in it. It's a Black college. It's a whole Black college. So why would they be mad? That's because they're racist. Racists hate on Black people at any and every opportunity they get. They want to terrorize us. They want to intimidate us, harass us, racially profile us, kill us. They want to do it all. But like I said, we don't get any type of hate crime legislation specifically for us. No, we're made to be the villains rather than the victims of oppression and systemic and institutionalized racism. Now, the campuses of at least 36 HBCUs, as well as other universities, have been targeted. And at least 18 of these colleges and universities were targeted on February the 1st, the first day of Black History Month. Now, more than 1/3 of the nation's 101 historically Black academic institutions have been threatened. The FBI announced that the threats were being investigated as racially and ethnically motivated violent extremism and hate crimes, and stated that the investigation was of the highest priority. Now, I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I just do not believe that they've made it the highest priority. That's what they haven't done. It seems to me their highest priority is the war going on between Russia and Ukraine, because that's all we see all over the news. I don't see this all over the news. Do you? Did I miss the memo? I haven't been seeing this all over the news. So if it hasn't been all over the news and they're not clearly trying to draw attention to it, then why should we even think that it's a high priority? I doubt it. So they say more than 20 field FBI offices are assisting in the investigation. When threats were received, institutions went into lockdown or evacuated the campus while local law enforcement agencies investigated. Now, Kylie Burke, the president of Howard University Student Association, told Congress that mental health resources at the HBCUs often provide for students, and those are vital. Well, it absolutely is. It really is, because we know how important it is to, to stay up on your mental health and to make sure everything's fine. And if you need counseling, to seek it. And also, we know the impact, the negative impact of racial trauma, hate crimes being perpetuated against the Black community. We suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, we have so much to deal with. And we absolutely do need counseling, many of us, but they don't give us the same empathy or sympathy as they do other people. The anxiety on campus after students were repeatedly woken up with safety alerts, sometimes as late as 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning, these left students on edge and feeling as if the next threat was just imminent. Now, bombing in the U.S. or bombings have a dark racial history. Well, we should all know about that. The most nefarious one and notorious one was Black Wall Street. And then next to that would be the bombing of Philadelphia, Operation Move, in 1985, which really wasn't that long ago. So bombing and bomb threats. Now, like the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, with the KKK bombing of the civil rights leader, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth's home in 1956. And those are just two examples of how violence has been used against Black communities, because we have thousands, right? Thousands upon thousands of actual examples. Now, they say these reprehensible threats against Black institutions echo the tactics employed by the Ku Klux Klan and others decades ago as they tried to instill terror in the Black community to prevent Black Americans from gaining civil rights. At the hearing, the FBI said that they have shared resources developed alongside the Department of Homeland Security with detailed guidance and plans to respond to crises such as an active shooter or bomb threat in these situations. Now, Ryan Young, the executive assistant director of the FBI's intelligence branch, says that the FBI is also working on several initiatives, including a multicultural engagement council composed of ethnic, religious, and minority leaders to better understand and devise solutions to support these communities. So they say the agency is also focusing on transnational repression and the threats that immigrants face as potential victims of violence. These threats came as hate crimes against Black Americans, and they're still on the rise, increasing by nearly 50% between 2019 and 2020. And this is according to the FBI. They say it's imperative that law enforcement agencies prioritize holding perpetrators accountable and they should be working to keep campuses safe while also pursuing a broader strategy to address the rising tide of violent white supremacy in the country. So they admit there's violent white supremacy, but we still can't get any legislation. Oh, okay, got it, right. And so Vice President Kamala Harris announced Wednesday that targeted HBCUs will be eligible for a new grants. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona and Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas have also met with the HBCU leaders on tools that they've talked to them about tools that they can use to strengthen their campus safety. They say HBCUs matter and every HBCU student matters, Mulaney said. That is why we must do everything possible to support them, especially when they're threatened with attack. I'll believe it when I see it. Not saying they aren't doing anything, but I just don't believe they're doing anything. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Have been made against dozens of our HBCUs, against historically Black churches, against synagogues, and other faith-based and academic institutions. These threats have been made in phone calls and instant messages and emails and online posts. These threats have brought fear and anxiety to places of peace, as has been mentioned, to sanctuaries, to schools where young people live and learn, to houses of worship where so many of us seek solace, Today, I will share 2 new steps our administration is taking to ensure that our communities are protected and that they are supported. Today, we are announcing that HBCUs that have received threats that significantly disrupt the learning environment are eligible for grant funding through our Department of Education and the leadership of Secretary Cardona. These short-term grants, known as Project Serve grants, can be used to hire more mental health professionals, to enhance campus security, and to provide specialized training to security staff. In addition, our administration is releasing a resource guide for colleges and universities with detailed information on detecting, preventing, and recovering from threats and acts of violence. Every American should be able to learn, work, worship, and gather without fear. It is our duty to do everything we can to protect all our communities. A harm against any one of our communities is a harm against all of us.
Okay, what I'm not going to do is buy anything Kabami said. At the end of the day, this is the same lady that said, no, I'm not going to do anything significantly or specifically for African Americans. No. All right. And then she has the nerve to say, our and we and us, like she's somehow unified with Black people. She isn't. Her birth certificate says Caucasian, and that's clearly who she works at the sole behest of. So I'm not trying to hear anything she says. She's full of shite. Okay. Now, what she's doing, as far as I'm concerned, is trying to score more brownie points. Yeah, for the next election. With her soror sisters, if you get what I'm saying. You know, all of the women who were out there yelling chucks and pearls and all that. Please, she's not trying to do anything for Black people. I'm just not going to believe any of it. I don't care for Kabami. She's a whole plantation mammy, even though she's technically not Black. But nevertheless, she is clearly not to be trusted as far as I'm concerned. So she can miss us with it at the end of the day. But here's the thing. I want you to pay attention to how, you know, these racist hate groups and organizations specifically target Black people to instill terror. They're whole domestic terrorists, okay? They target Black people, harass Black people, and all to try to stifle us, you know, from our growth, from getting an education, you know, from being productive. And they really do this just because of their hate and wickedness. Like, I don't understand why they can't just mind their own darn business. I mean, don't they have a whole opioid crisis they should actually, in fact, be concerned about? I'm sorry, don't they? But no. And then the thing that really ticks me off is when I see Black people talking about going over to fight in Ukraine, when this is how your own Black people are being treated over here in your country. Now, I don't see many of these people who are talking about going over there, like the fool who said he was going to go fight last week, the 62-year-old Black man. I don't see or hear people like him talking about these type of issues and talking about, you know, trying to unify Black people collectively or doing anything to help our community in general. But you have time to go fight in Ukraine. Make that make sense. I clearly cannot. So anyway, like I said, this is what happens to us, and nobody really cares. We can't get legislation. We can't get any form of tangibles. We can't get those checks, no reparations. And when we complain about it, we're just demonized and vilified and told to simply just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. But at the end of the day, they don't pull themselves up by their bootstraps. In fact, what they do is, as we can see from the story that I did on Mason, Tennessee, how they allowed the white folk to put them in debt. The whole town was millions in debt because the white folk were embezzling and stealing up all the money in cash. And then they resigned. And then when the Black people took over and started trying to pull them out of debt, well, now as soon as they realize that big money's coming due to investments and Ford coming there with plenty of jobs for at least 20,000 people, now they want to kick the Black people out so they can come right back in and start making all that cash. That's something that has continuously been done. But those same people that do that will tell us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps when they don't even do that themselves. They get us to literally pull them up by the bootstraps, by enabling and enlisting, right, and delegating Black people to do the work that they themselves don't want to do. But when the work is done, they are so quick to come and snatch up any benefits that came from the work. And that's the same thing as slavery, if you ask me. I don't see how that's any different. It's the same thing as slavery. Now, I'm not going to sit here and think that the FBI has made these bomb threats of HBCUs a top priority. I'm just not going to believe that, because like I said, I don't even see this being reported on the mainstream propaganda machine. Don't hear a word or a peep about it. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. At the end of the day, what they will do is they'll talk about Ukraine and Zelensky and paint them as heroes and heroines and act as though they're so brave and vigilant and all of this, and demonize Putin, spread and spew propaganda. But meanwhile, right over here, all of these inhumane things, all of this hatred and vitriol for Black people continues to be spewed, and they don't want to talk about it. Well, I'm going to continue to talk about it. Everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so that you're in fact notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. And I hope to see you all in the next chats, all right, for the rest of your daily vitamins. Peace.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another Black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is Black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put 2 dupes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a Black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my Black shoes by the Black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coon. The white man to go nuts if he cash you. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make sense.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Amadeus.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Amadeus.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
Queen. I'm getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Amadeus.
So the only way we're going to get some of